The UK is the highest net exporter of financial services, and London, with its convenient time zone, use of English, and feather-light regulations, is the world's financial capital. Various cities, including Venice and Amsterdam, have held and lost the title throughout history. Brexit and the possible loss of passporting rights of firms in Britain have raised questions about whether the city can keep its position at the heart of the international monetary system. But how did it get there? We briefly trace the history. London's primary financial district is actually a city in itself, known as the City of London. It was established a few years after the Roman invasion in AD 50 on the north bank of the River Thames, and even has its own mayor and a governing body called City of London Corporation. Like other ports, commerce flourished in the city and it drew merchants and entrepreneurs from all over. Historian Peter Borsay says London's population went from 50,000 to 60,000 in the 1520s to 1 million by the end of the 18th century. Between 1650 and 1750, it saw the arrival of 8,000 immigrants a year, according to historical demographer Tony Wrigley. These merchants established guilds and wielded great influence and power. They were able to secure autonomy and special freedoms and rights for the residents that businesses in the area enjoy to this day. The merchants also went into banking and developed the sector. The Bank of England, which stands in the middle of the city, was a private corporation started by merchants in 1694 during the 9-Year War to fund the government's military efforts. It received various long-term privileges and became a monopoly. Coffee houses, numerous within the city's walls around this time, were used as makeshift offices that would become financial institutions. The London Stock Exchange was started by stockbrokers who conducted business in Jonathan's Coffee House in Change Alley. Similarly, the insurance market, Lloyd's of London, was named after a coffee house on Tower Street that was used by marine underwriters. There was hardly any question as to which city in the UK financial activities would concentrate in. An ancient banking tradition, a major port, the capital seat, the hub of the railroad network, built after 1830, all forces were brought to bear on the single locality, itself with the minor ambivalence between the city and the West End. The Irish and Scottish different banking systems reached across their boundaries and linked up with London, wrote economic historian Charles P. Kindleberger in The Formation of Financial Centers. London borrowed and improved upon financial innovations from Amsterdam, the world's trading and financial center in the 17th century. It developed a market-centered system as opposed to the bank-centered one in the Dutch city and grew more dominant in the 18th century. London then competed with Paris to be the biggest global financial hub until the mid-19th century. Paris lost out in 1848 when the Bank of France suspended specie payments after France lost a war with Prussia. Since the suspension of specie payments by the Bank of France, its use as a reservoir of specie is at an end, wrote Walter Bagehot in his famous 1873 book, Lombard Street, a description of the money market. London has become the sole great settling house of exchange transactions in Europe, instead of being formerly one of two. And this preeminence London will probably maintain, for it is a natural preeminence. London is the place which receives more than any other place and pays more than any other place, and therefore it is the natural clearing house. London held supreme until the start of the First World War, when Kindleberger says it began to have difficulty in maintaining its role as a center for foreign reserves and a source of short and long-term credit. New York was briefly the financial center of the world after the Second World War until the euro-dollar market developed in the 1950s, and London took a lion's share of it, according to Kinderberger. Economist Ronan Palin explained that this was because while the US was a rising hegemonic power focused on developing its manufacturing and commercial sector, the British Empire was a declining hegemonic state with the weak manufacturing and commercial sector and a relatively powerful financial sector. Although nationalized in 1946, the Bank of England remained effectively under the control of the city's commercial banks. The Bank of England consistently pursued policies that favored the city's position as a world financial center, even when such policies were seen as harmful to the UK's mainland manufacturing needs. In October 1979, Britain removed controls on foreign exchange placed during the Second World War. 7 years later, the city's financial markets were deregulated in a move so tremendous that it was dubbed the Big Bang. The removal of fixed-rate commissions, entry of foreign companies, and a switch to electronic trading helped kick off a financial revolution that would cement London's place as the global financial capital. The average daily turnover of the London Stock Exchange rose from £500 million in 1986 to over $2 billion in 1995. The city also became a hub for the multi-trillion-dollar global derivatives market in the 90s. An EU perspective was undertaken by the Central Bank of Ireland to answer the question of what will happen to London's status as a global financial center, GFC, and to its role as the primary GFC of the European Union post-Brexit. After running a number of simulations investigating the future of London after Brexit, the research says that London is likely to remain a major GFC, even in the event of an adverse Brexit outcome. The authors of the research, Sylvia Carlo and Valerie Herzberg, commented, "We find that given the sizable gap between London and other financial centers in Europe and London's international orientation, London is likely to remain a very large global financial center, even in the more adverse scenarios." When the research compared London to other European financial centers, the city stood out both in terms of size and range of services offered. The research noted that in non-bank finance, London leads by a big margin in many sectors, especially in market infrastructure. The prominent role of London in FX transactions and OTC derivatives is well established, accounting in 2016 for nearly 40% of global interest rate derivative turnover. When it came at calculating the scenario's effect on the banking sector, the research observed that while the UK and some continental centers share certain characteristics, they differ in their international profile. The UK reports domestic banking assets of over €6 trillion versus roughly 5.5 trillion for France or Germany. Where London and other centers differ is in relation to being a hub for foreign branches and subsidiaries. The impact could be very small. The research report concluded London displays all the main features that characterized financial centers over centuries. It has a large population with a high share of foreign workers. It is hosted in a large economy open to trade in goods and services. It has a large and connected banking sector, and it provides a broad array of financial services, from banking to insurance and FX trading. It is also at the edge of the technological frontier in many of these sectors.